Welcome back everyone to Self-Serving Skillet, the show where I give you single-serving recipes and ideas for those living by themselves or cooking for themselves. Do me a favor and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. I upload new content on Saturdays at 9 a.m. Central Time, and beginning with last week's video, we'll be watching it live along with you for the first half hour to respond to any comments in real time. Let's get to the hot chocolate. I'm gonna break up and toast a cinnamon stick. If you don't have a cinnamon stick, you can add a half a teaspoon of cinnamon when you add the cocoa powder. You could very much make hot chocolate with milk, cocoa powder, and white sugar, or you could gently melt some chocolate chips into your milk, but I'm gonna show you a couple of ways to make it more interesting. While that cinnamon toasts up, I'm gonna measure out 16 grams of coffee beans into this Poralex hand grinder, which is a little more than half an ounce, and grind that on a fine setting. This hand grinder has 14 levels of coarseness, and I'm using number 3 right now. I know it might seem like a lot of work, but if I'm just making one pour over, Aeropress, or French press, I'm really done grinding before my water comes up to temperature. Back to the pan. I turned off my heat when I started grinding the coffee. Before I put the milk in, I want this to be no more than warm to the touch. Heating your milk above 165 degrees Fahrenheit will get you a burnt and gritty taste that will not go away as it cools. Heat back on, and I'm going to add in 1 ounce or 30 grams of baking chocolate, 2 tablespoons of brown sugar, 1 tablespoon of cocoa powder, a tablespoon of maple syrup, and a tablespoon of honey. Now, I said that you could make this completely with white sugar, and I didn't lie, but I find that using a couple of different sweeteners, each with their own distinct flavor profile, will take this and most other things to the next level. I'm also going to add 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract, heat, and whisk over a medium heat. Our goal is to melt the baking chocolate and break up the clumps of unsweetened cocoa powder. Remember, don't overheat this. Heat off. And I'm really making 2 servings here. One which will be a mocha for me, and the other which will be a hot chocolate for my roommate. First, I'm gonna wet the filter as I would with any paper filter. Then I'm going to measure out 90 grams of water into my 16 grams of finely ground coffee for somewhere around a double shot of espresso. I'm going to stir that in with this coffee stick they give you to ensure a more even extraction. Attach my cap with my pre-wetted filter and squeeze out some of the excess air, which will aid me in the flipping process. Hands on both the bottom and top as I turn it up right over my coffee receptacle, and let the weight of my hands take this down. I'm leaning into it just slightly. The whole process should take 30 seconds or less, but since the Aeropress is really about a marriage between your grind size and the extraction time, you can use a coarser grind for a longer brew. I've made French presses in this that have worked out just fine. And what would hot chocolate be without whipped cream? The answer is delicious, but let's do it anyway. I pulled out a 1/4 cup, but decided on the fly that I wanted more whipped cream than that. I'm adding 1/8 of a cup or 2 tablespoons of powdered sugar. This will give you a more frosting-like whipped cream than granulated sugar, a pinch of salt or you won't be able to taste anything, and some vanilla extract. I'm going with half a tablespoon. Mix until homogeneous, then we begin beating the heck out of it. This took me about 2 minutes. I find that the back and forth method works best for this application. Then we're going to strain the cinnamon stick pieces out of the hot chocolate, which has been sitting here for about 3 minutes, which means it's probably the perfect temperature for a child, but an adult may need to turn it on low for a minute. Then we just fill, whipped cream, and I'm going to garnish these with a coffee bean and a cinnamon stick respectively to differentiate. Let's leave my roommate's hot chocolate intact by tasting the rest of my pitcher. It's really chocolatey and complex from the 2 different kinds of chocolate we used and the 3 different kinds of sweetener. And the mocha is just heavenly. This has got a lot going on and it all works together. Last week I gave you cherries and chocolate. This week I give you coffee and chocolate. 2 of my 67 favorite flavor combinations, and sometimes I even use them all together. Subscribe if you haven't, and don't forget to get in the kitchen and let your hunger be your inspiration.